everyone, and welcome to my latest Star Wars review. I know some of you are probably wanting... I know I got at least a couple comments asking me for a review of Avengers Infinity War, which I did see this weekend, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do a video review of it. I was kind of toying around with the idea of... because I didn't just see Avengers, I saw a couple movies this weekend. I saw Rampage, I saw A Quiet Place, and I saw Avenger, all in like a 3 or 4 day span. Kind of crazy weekend at the movies. And I thought about doing one big video with all the reviews and just doing them all at once. I also thought about pushing Rampage back to my giant monster movie review and including it as part of that. That would probably be a better fit for that. I'm still working on putting those together again. July, they're going to start in July, God willing. Everything goes according to plan. But I'm not sure if there's anything I can add to Avengers that hasn't already been said, but maybe this week if I've got time, I'll knock out a video review of that and A Quiet Place at least, and maybe Rampage if I feel inclined. Not promising that video's coming out, I'm just saying I'm toying around with the idea, and if I have some spare time, I might knock it out. So I do have some things to say about Avengers. What I will say is that if you haven't seen it, it's worth your time. I thought it was very good. So especially if you're a fan of the Marvel movies, and you've been following them for 10 years, it's definitely worth watching, for sure. But I've got a lot of there's so many different things that happen in that movie, I can't possibly cover it all here. So that's my basic recommendation. If you haven't seen it, go see it, and try to stay spoiler-free. I had a few things spoiled for me going in, which I wish weren't spoiled for me, but... them's the break sometimes. But we are here to talk about Star Wars, and specifically, we are here to talk about Han Solo, who is a person of interest, shall we say, in Star Wars fandom, because he's got a movie coming out. He's got his own prequel movie, the movie Solo, a Star Wars story, detailing a young Han Solo and some adventure that he gets put on along with Chewbacca and Lando Calrissian, and Khaleesi as well. She's along for the ride. And Woody Harrelson, who is an actor I actually really enjoy. Loved him in War for the Planet of the Apes, just as an example. Loved him in Zombieland. Love him in a lot of things. I loved him as Woody from Cheers. So he's been entertaining me pretty much my whole life. So I think the cast overall is pretty good. But you know, with Solo being such a main focus right now of Star Wars, I thought today's book review should focus on Han Solo, since this will be the last review I do before that movie comes out. So, for today, we will be doing A.C. Crispin's Han Solo Trilogy. Trilogy of books that came out as part of the expanded universe that details the life and times of a young Han Solo and the various adventures that he went on prior to meeting Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi in the cantina on that fateful day in Episode 4. And basically all the events of those 3 books cover the span of 19 years. And it's not even fully comprehensive. It's just certain things that happen throughout Han Solo's lifetime, which I really like. And I'm going to tie that into why I think the Solo movie is not going to be good and the mistake I think that movie's going to make. I guess I'll just cover it right now before I talk about the things I did enjoy about the books and why I'm going to recommend them. But my problem with the Solo movie and the mistake I think they're going to make, in addition to the production hell that went on with the original directors getting fired and they had to bring on Ron Howard to kind of fix the film, and I don't have a whole lot of faith in the lead actor who's playing Han Solo, who, ironically enough, had my favorite scene in Hail Caesar where he's being made fun of for being a bad actor. Actually, a joke among my friends and I, will go around to each other and just go, "Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple. Put your goddamn hands down!" And we just do that randomly at dinner, like, talking to each other. We're a bunch of film buffs and nerds, so... but anyway, you know, in addition to all of that, which I think are huge red flags that this movie's not going to go well, the other problem I have is that it's a Solo prequel movie. My fear is it's going to be like, to quote South Park, it's going to be like a Member Berries thing, where they're going to take every aspect of Han Solo's history that we know from the movies. What are those things? We know about the Kessel Run. We know that he dropped a shipment from Jabba and got himself in trouble. We know he met Lando at some point and they have a history together. We know he pairs up with Chewie and they have a history together, obviously. We know that he's been from one end of the galaxy to the next and that he doesn't believe in the Force. We know... trying to think, is there anything else about Han that we should know, that like any details of his past? I think that pretty much covers it. And we know he was a smuggler. We know that. So my fear is that they're going to do all of that stuff in one movie. And to me, that really kind of cheapens Han Solo, because to me, Han Solo is the person he is because of a lifetime of experiences. It didn't all just happen in one story or all in one day. Han Solo is the product of his experiences, and he brings that experience to the adventure in dealing with Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and running aboard the Death Star. He is the way he is because he's been that way his whole life. And his experiences have shaped him. And he's got this whole history, which is why, like, a trilogy of Han Solo books is actually really good. This isn't even the only one. I mean, there's a lot of, like, Han Solo prequel material out there. And these books aren't even fully comprehensive of his entire life. It's, Han Solo is one of the best characters to do a prequel story on, because you could do a wealth of different stories with him. And all of them could fit. You could do a story where he meets Lando. You could do a story where he meets Chewbacca. When Han met Chewie. I'll have what he's having. They could do an adventure where he does the Kessel Run for the first time, or where he meets Dash Rendar, or various other things. Or they could just do some random-ass story where it's just Han and Chewie going on a smuggling run, and they run into some trouble. There's literally anything you can do with Han, but what I think this movie's going to do is it's going to try and do everything all in one story as an attempt to kind of cash in on our nostalgia and do the things that we already know. It's like, oh, look, there's the Kessel Run. Oh, look, that's how he got the Falcon for the first time. And, oh, look, that's how that happened. And I just have that sinking feeling they're going to do all of that in one movie, and it's going to be annoying. And best case scenario, I think the movie is going to, I think best case scenario, it's going to be inoffensive fluff that's largely forgettable. Worst case scenario, it's a fucking disaster. I will say this, though. I like the look of the film from the trailers. It looks very dirty and grungy, which I love. It has like an old, like, kind of, like, it has a space western feel to it, which is what the original film felt like. And it even has, like, dare I say, like, kind of a Firefly look to it, kind of, sort of. So I like the way it looks. And I do love who they cast as Lando Calrissian. That is extremely... I could complain about the casting on Han all day, but it's like that guy... getting him to play Lando, I mean, that's some pretty grade A casting right there. So it's like, I'm counting on him to be the best thing in the movie. So, my hopes are very low for the Solo movie, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. Hopefully it's a good movie. But what these books do... that I really like, as I've kind of outlined here, it takes place over the span of 19 years, starting with Han as a kid, and then going all the way to, literally the third book ends right as he is sitting in the cantina where he ultimately meets Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi. A mission that I'm sure at the time he wishes he didn't take. But, and I love that the author, A.C. Crispin, took that approach with this, because... like I said, Han Solo is the product of a wealth of experiences. It isn't just he woke up one day, became a smuggler, and felt the way he did and act the way he did. He is the galaxy. He's got all the wisdom in the galaxy just from his experience, and he's the street smart guy of the crew, and he knows what's up because he's been there. He's done it all. So, I think doing it all in one story would cheapen it, so doing it in 3 stories spread out over 19 years, I think is very effective and handles most of it very well. And like I said, certain things get glossed over. Like, the second book begins, he's already met Chewbacca. He didn't meet him in the first book, and then in the second book it's like, oh yeah, I have this partner named Chewie, which is a story that's covered elsewhere. I think most of us have heard the story that... Han was an Imperial officer, and he saw Chewie being mistreated, and he felt bad, so he saved him, and then Chewie owed him a life debt, and then they went on and became the world-class smuggling duo that we all know and love. So that story's already been covered, but I like that it really glossed over it in these books, because it's like, again, if you're reading these books, you probably know already, and... Again, it's like, these books aren't designed to be a fully comprehensive history of Han Solo. They're designed to be... points in time of his history, and you can't hold Han Solo down to one story. You can't hold him down to one day. It's, you gotta paint the full picture with the entire scope of his life. And I really like that approach that the book took. So what do the books ultimately cover? Well, like I said, it begins with him as a young street urchin type. And almost like an Oliver Twist scenario almost, where he's working for Space Fagin. But he ultimately gets away from that life. He has a female Wookiee who is like his caregiver, which gives him an affinity for Wookiees. And, it's like, all right, so because she helped me, that leads to him gaining sympathy for Chewbacca later and leads to them becoming friends. But Chewbacca's not in the first book. He ultimately gets out of the street urchin life, becomes a smuggler and a pilot, and winds up getting wrapped up with this weirdo, I guess cult is the word you would go with, and he ends up falling in love with one of the cult members, Bria, God, what's her last name? I'm just going to call her Bria. Bria, and they end up falling in love, and Han Solo's like, oh man, I've met the woman of my dreams, and they get away from the cult and everything and do all that. Then Han Solo goes to Coruscant with full intentions of joining the Imperial Navy and goes to enlist. Bria ultimately leaves him because she feels it's not going to work out, and she's, I grew up in a cult and I need, other experiences, and I need to see the galaxy and all this other stuff. So Han Solo gets his heart broken, and Bria is kind of the connective tissue, the connective thread among these books, especially when you get into book 3, where he runs into her again. The second book is largely about how Han gets caught up in this entanglement, this dispute between the Hutts and the Imperials, and how the Imperials want to control the Hutt territory, and Han helps put together a bunch of smugglers to resist the Imperials. So it's kind of his first taste of rebelling against the Empire. And along the way, he gets to ride in the Falcon for the first time, working with Lando Calrissian, so he meets Lando for the first time. There's an awesome scene where he meets Boba Fett for the first time, and Lando gets him out of that scrape. So, so I guess you could say this is kind of the birth of the Boba Fett-Han Solo rivalry, that we've all kind of, this idea that we've all had in our heads, that Han Solo and Boba Fett are like the fox and the rabbit, and just Boba Fett is just always pursuing Han Solo. It's amazing how, the imagination of fans, because there's nothing in the movie that really suggests that there is this rivalry between Boba Fett and Han Solo, but again, our imaginations and a lot of these authors just had the idea that, Boba Fett just wants to catch Han Solo, and just wants to put the fucker in his place. So it's, and I always love it when that comes up in the stories, and it's always nice. I mean, I'm never going to object to seeing Boba Fett in my stories, so, my personal favorite stuff in the second book is where they describe how he rides in the Falcon for the first time, which is awesome, and that's like, you want to talk about falling in love for the first time. That's like a man meeting the woman of his dreams right there. It's like, oh my god, he found the Falcon. That's pretty neat. And he comes up with all these ideas. It's like, I think I'm going to modify it and do this, that, and the other to it. Which is also great. That's one thing, again, with the Solo movie, I kind of hope that, because the Falcon's going to be in this movie, I would kind of hope that instead of the finished product Millennium Falcon, that it would be what it looked like when Han first got his hands on it. And it would be maybe a little bit more pristine, and maybe the quad guns wouldn't be there, and because Han modified it in certain ways. But again, those are just, I'm nitpicking a movie I haven't even seen yet, but anyway. I really enjoyed all of that stuff in book 2, and then in book 3, Rebel Dawn, it literally, like I said, it literally ends with Han in the cantina where he's about to meet Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, but along the way in this story, he meets up with Bria again, and she gets him tangled up in the Rebel Alliance and getting Han to help her out there. And they have a very tumultuous relationship, given that she already walked out on him years earlier. So it was nice to see that come back, and nice to see kind of the fuel for Han's cynicism and Han's reluctance to really care about people, especially in that first movie. It's like no wonder he's so jaded. He had the woman of his dreams completely walk out on him and humiliate him. So it is nice that they went back to that, and again, it's Han's first dealings with the Rebel Alliance. So I guess it kind of rewrites history a little bit, where A New Hope wasn't the first time he got sucked in. But in this story, we also get the little detail of Han Solo dropping that shipment from Jabba the Hutt. which got him in trouble and landed him in deep water. So you do get all of that stuff, and he has this falling out with Lando as well, which plays into Empire Strikes Back, where it's like, oh, that was a long time ago. I'm sure he's forgotten about that by now. And again, it's nice to see those things come up, but it's also nice that it's not all in one book, and it's in 3 different stories spread out over 19 years, which is the perfect way to do Han Solo, I think. It's because it's and I guess this points to characters that Harrison Ford plays, because it works with Indiana Jones too. It's like there's a history worth exploring there, but it's worth exploring over the course of time, not just as because that is, even though the prologue sequence in Last Crusade is great, it is kind of weird that like they were trying to paint the picture that Indiana Jones was created like on that one day at 12 years old. He got the scar, he got the fear of snakes, he got the whip, he got the hat, and it just all happened in one day. And I'm like, really? That's I mean, I guess you could say it wasn't a finished product yet. It was kind of it was a really good sequence, and it was really cute, but I always kind of like, really, all that happened in one day? It's like, I would think that Indiana would be a little bit more like, again, the product of his experiences, not just he found his identity all in one day. But yeah, perfectly honest, I think these books are really, really good, and they're no longer canon, obviously, because they're part of the expanded universe. Actually, the biggest indicator that they're no longer canon, Bria's mission in the 3rd book is to get the Death Star plans to Princess Leia on the Tantive 4. There's a whole movie that now makes the whole plot point obsolete. So, no, these books are no longer canon. They no longer fit, as is everything in the expanded universe. But if you are a fan of Han Solo, and if you're a fan of finding out more about him and just spending time with the character that's really endearing and lovable. Because, who doesn't love Han Solo? He's the best. He's just the greatest. And I highly recommend reading these books. I think they're very, very good. I think, again, it's not a complete history of Han Solo, but I think they're very enjoyable reads. I don't know if I'd put them up there as, like, absolute must-reads, but like I said, if you're a Han Solo fan, they are definitely worth checking out. And I do feel like, when I read the book, I feel like, yeah, that's Han. And sometimes that's hard to do with these characters. If, when you've grown up with these characters, you have an idea in your head of how they're supposed to sound and how they're supposed to act. And it's very easy to get that wrong if you're a writer. Because you're pleasing so many taskmasters, because you're, especially back then, you're having to please Lucasfilm. You're having to please this rabid fan base that's just got like a critical eye on everything you do. And I guess nowadays it's even worse, because now you got to please Disney, and they're like, ha! You screw up, we'll kill you! Ha! We make billions and billions of dollars on every property ever! Ha! But anyway, no, I felt like this book, if you're looking for more Han Solo material and you're looking for just a fun time with everybody's favorite smuggler, I highly recommend them. I think they're very good reads. And if my predictions are correct, they will probably be a more worthwhile Han Solo prequel than the upcoming movie. But again, I've been wrong before. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm also highly suspicious that the movie's coming out in May, so close to, like, Avengers. It's kind of like, it's almost like, I don't want to say it looks like Disney's trying to bury it and trying to, like, kind of sneak it in and not having it come out in December like they normally do. But again, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, so probably my next Star Wars review, I'm going to have a book review next month. That'll be something completely different, but you'll see me again when it comes time to review the Solo movie, because that is kind of a tradition on this channel. I do review all the Star Wars movies that comes out. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that Disney makes one a year. I think that's overkill. I've said this before. To me, like, didn't these things feel like more of an event when they were once every 3 years? It's like, you're oversaturating your brand, guys. Come on. Again, that's just how I feel. But anyway, that's all I have for this review. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. And again, I'm toying around with the idea of doing an Avengers and A Quiet Place movie review later this week. And maybe Rampage as well. I don't know. We'll see. If you don't get it, I didn't promise it. So keep that in mind. But if you do get it, it's because I found time to do it. So, like I said, I'm all done here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. And again, pick these up. I think these books are really good. So check them out, and happy fun, reading, everybody. And hopefully you all enjoyed the Solo movie. Hopefully it's good. So fingers crossed.